Previously on the mysterious twins.
Hello, who tried to kill Sasa. I was told she almost got killed last night. A voice on the other end responded? Yes, it was one of the moles working for boss who did that. Zara's voice trembled with frustration. I thought having JJ as bait was enough for the boss to get what he wanted. You are a disgrace to the force, he spat. This substance, he said, holding up a vial of evidence, has been confirmed as the same one found in the blood samples of Kamzi and the other suspects. So tell me, he demanded, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a menacing growl, who are you working for, and why are you killing all the suspects?
The Mysterious Twins, Part 11.
Detective Daniel was deep in thought, puzzled by Zara's presence with Kamzi, who was a sworn enemy of her twin sister, Sasa. Eager to satisfy his curiosity, he called Bobby. Hello, Bobby. Good to hear from you, Daniel. Any news? Bobby asked. Have you heard that Kamzi is alive? Daniel inquired. No, I haven't. That's good news, Bobby responded with surprise. Please, get answers to all the questions that have been bothering us. We need to move fast. Daniel paused, then asked, how's Sasa's twin sister doing? Bobby's voice turned thoughtful. I haven't heard from her for a while now. I believe she's doing well. Daniel was taken aback. So she hasn't been coming to the hospital to check on her twin sister? No, Bobby confirmed, but I think she must have been busy with a lot. Daniel's mind raced. That's strange. Zara hasn't visited even once. Bobby sighed. No, not since this whole thing started. It's been odd. Daniel's suspicions deepened. Bobby, keep an eye on Sasa and everyone around her. Something's not right. I'll continue digging on my end. Will do. Thanks, Daniel, Bobby said, a hint of concern in his voice. Daniel ended the call, his determination renewed. He had a strong feeling that Zara was more involved in this tangled web than anyone realized. He knew he needed to find out more about her connection with Kamzi and why she hadn't been visiting her twin sister.
At the hospital.
Bobby decided to check on Zara. He dialed her number, his voice filled with a mix of concern and warmth. My lovely daughter, it's been a while. Yes, Dad. How are you doing? Zara asked, her tone seemingly indifferent. We're doing well, Bobby responded, hesitating slightly. Zara, you haven't even bothered to check on your sister. She needs you. Zara's voice turned cold. Dad, I can't stand staring at my sister in such a terrible condition. But I'll try to come around today. I promise. Bobby, relieved but still wary, announced Zara's visit to Patricia. Both were happy, full of expectation. I hope she really comes, Patricia said, a mixture of hope and doubt in her voice. She hasn't been herself since all this ordeal started. She promised, Bobby reassured her. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Hours later, Zara walked into the hospital, her expression unreadable. As she approached Sasa's ward, her steps slowed, and she took a deep breath before entering. Patricia greeted her with a hug. It's so good to see you, Zara. Sasa needs all the support she can get. Zara nodded, her eyes scanning the room before settling. I'm here now, she said, her voice softer than before. I'll stay for a while. Bobby and Patricia exchanged relieved glances, grateful for her presence. As Zara sat beside Sasa, she reached out and held her sister's hand. I'm sorry I haven't been here, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I've just been overwhelmed. Patricia placed a comforting hand on Zara's shoulder. We understand, just having you here means a lot. Patricia glanced at Bobby, concern etched on her face. Bobby, we should go home to freshen up. Since Zara is here with Sasa, she can safeguard her sister in our absence. Bobby nodded, considering her suggestion. But Daniel's words about a family member working with Kamzi echoed in his mind. He quickly discarded the thought, believing Zara couldn't be that reckless. Zara, overhearing their conversation, turned to them with a reassuring smile. Don't worry, Mom, Dad, I'll stay with Sasa. You both need a break. Patricia hugged her daughter. Thank you, Zara. We'll be back soon. As Bobby and Patricia stepped out of the room, two police officers entered the ward. Miss Zara, we just need to confirm your identity and presence here. If you need anything or if any unforeseen situation arises, please call us immediately. Zara remained calm and polite. Thank you, officers. I appreciate your vigilance. The officers nodded and left, shutting the door behind them. Zara returned to Sasa's side, gently holding her hand and rubbing it soothingly. It's just you and me now, Sasa, she whispered, her voice a mix of warmth and tension. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I'm here now. As she sat there, Zara's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. She felt the weight of her past decisions and the complicated web of lies she had spun. As Zara rubbed her sister's palm, she leaned in close, her voice a venomous whisper. My only regret was that I wasn't born as a single child. Having you share my space right from the womb was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I had no opportunity to have all the attention, love, care, and support I deserved as a daughter. Sometimes I wish you didn't exist. Sometimes I wish I could erase your memory completely from our family. Her grip tightened slightly on Sasa's hand as she continued. All our team's efforts to end you always hit a rock. How can I be living in your shadow? The gap between us in achievements is far greater than the difference in our physical height. I thought I had it all. I thought you would live in my shadow forever because of your disadvantage. I thought you would end up being my house help in my matrimonial home. I thought you would never amount to anything, but look at you, you stole all that belonged to me. Zara's eyes gleamed with malice. I wish you never wake up from this coma. How I wish I could marry your husband and become his only wife. That guy is too handsome to be yours. I hated living in your shadow. I wanted my own life, my own recognition. Sasa, Sasa, I wish. Sasa's fingers twitched, and she muttered, her voice weak but clear. Zara, there is a saying that if the death within does not kill a person, the external cannot harm them. Zara's eyes widened in shock and fear as she tried to comprehend when Sasa became conscious. Panic set in, knowing her sister might have heard everything she had said. Her heart pounded as she realized the implications of her confession. Sasa's eyes fluttered open, and she looked directly at Zara, her gaze piercing despite her frail condition. Zara, what have you done? Zara stumbled back, her facade of confidence crumbling. You heard everything, she stammered. Sasa tried to sit up, her voice gaining strength. Yes, Zara, I heard it all. You've betrayed our family and plotted against me. But you know what? Despite everything, I still love you. You're my sister, my only sister. Zara's shock turned into anger and desperation. You love me, after everything, after all you heard me said. How can you still pretend to be so perfect? Sasa shook her head, her expression one of deep sadness. It's not about pretending, Zara. It's about understanding that hate only destroys. Our father might have raised us to be enemies, but our mother didn't raise us that way and she always got our back. So why did you choose to fight me? Have I ever done anything wrong? Tears welled up in Zara's eyes, but her anger surged. You have been pretending to be nice since we were small, even though it was obvious that I had better chances to fly higher than you in life.
Flashback.
I remember the day our mom bought us body towels. Zara began, her voice trembling with a mixture of rage and sorrow. She gave you a pink one with a rose design at the edge while mine was just plain yellow. I angrily dropped mine and told Mom that she should have asked me to pick first since I am the only child that would make them proud in the future. Mom was very upset and slapped me, saying I should discard such evil thoughts from my head and never say such a thing about my sister again. She said we both had great destinies and I shouldn't treat you as disadvantaged. Zara's grip on Sassa's hand tightened as she continued. I screamed and cried, filled with anger towards you. I remember you coming to me and begging, saying you were sorry for what happened and that henceforth you would let me choose first and decide what I touched in the house. You happily exchanged your towel for mine and said we should live in peace because we were sisters. My response was harsh, and in anger, I left for my room. I still remember the echo of that slap. Zara's eyes filled with tears as she recounted the past. Your pretense when Dad treated me as his favorite is still in my memory. You always behaved maturely and ignored Dad's maltreatment of you. So many times, he came back with different toys, shoes, comics, and more things for only me, and you would act as if it didn't matter. Your pretense gets me mad. Sometimes I think you are a demon, just as Grandma always called you. Sassa, with great effort, said, Zara, I never pretended. I just wanted us to be happy. I never saw you as a rival. I saw you as my sister, my other half. We shared everything, even our very existence. Endured Dad's favoritism because I knew it made you happy. I wanted to see you smile, even if it meant I had to suffer. Zara pulled back, her face twisted in confusion and pain. Why did you suddenly outrun me? I saw it coming, but I ignored it. Do you remember the day our class teacher, Mr. Eamon, came to our house to plead with Dad to pay your school fees and buy you books? He explained how the school authority embarrassed you because of unpaid fees. Do you remember what he said next when Dad declared he had decided to focus all his attention on training only me since it was obvious there was nothing you could actually do with your life? Sassa listened quietly, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and empathy. Zara's voice trembled with emotion as she continued. Dad said no employer would hire a dwarf like you, no man would marry someone like you, and your brain couldn't possibly deliver what it takes to succeed in life. He questioned the essence of investing in a future that seemed non-existent. Mr. Emmons' anger surged, and he told Dad, Mr. Bobby, you are merely a channel through which this child came into the world, but you have no idea what her destiny holds. Despite your anger and negative reactions towards her, she is the best in the class, even outperforming her twin sister. Zara's eyes filled with tears. Did you hear that? You performing better than me in class. That actually got me jealous, and since that day I started building hatred towards you. I was so excited when our father couldn't stand that comparison and asked Mr. Eamon to leave our house immediately, never to compare us again. Then, Dad hired a private teacher for me who came to the house every evening to teach only me, with strict orders that you should never join the class. The room was filled with the weight of their shared memories, both painful and bittersweet. Sassa reached out, her hand trembling, and touched Zara's arm. I remember, Zara, I remember it all. I remember how Dad treated us differently. But I also remember how I wish things could be different, how I wanted us to be close, to support each other. Zara's tears flowed freely now, her voice breaking as she shouted at Sassa, Don't even go there. That was the mind game you played on me. You made me do a lot of things against my will. Can you remember when I started sharing almost everything with you? That time when Mom was having issues at work and couldn't afford to pay your school fees or buy books for you. She wasn't even able to support you financially in any way. You and Mom begged me to share everything with you. I became your financial support system. I shared my textbooks. I made Dad buy more notebooks for me so I could share them with you. And I collected more money from Dad than I needed so I could give some to you. I was there for you for almost a year before Mom got back on her feet financially. Zara's eyes blazed with a mix of anger and hurt. Had I known that you were only taking advantage of me in order to trap me and leave me far behind, I would have neglected you that time. Remember, I was already ahead of you by 2 classes because you were owing the school, though much money, and when they couldn't take it anymore, they stopped you from coming to school. I gave you all the support within my capacity, but look at you. Just look at the level you're at now. Were you actually doing what you preached to me that time? You are just moving at the speed of light to the top without pulling me along. You are successful. You are rich. You are married. You are famous. In fact, nobody would believe that I'm your twin sister. The margin is quite wide. Sasa, though still very weak, struggled to answer her. Zara, please don't judge me wrongly. You graduated 2 years before me and Dad sent you abroad for further study. As soon as you came back, you became the financial director of Dad's company. Before I could finish school, you were already a big success. I never thought I could get to this height. Never. It seems as if I was only standing alone. Can a tree make a forest? Zara, I was only giving my best at every level I found myself, and that's what brought the reality of today. Remember what you told me when I tried reaching you at the time you started working in Dad's company. You said I should forget completely about you and erase you from my memory because your only ticket to the top was to never have anything to do with me again, based on the agreement you signed with Dad. Zara responded, Yes, of course. I had to believe that distancing myself from you could afford me speedy success. You look so small, but you were occupying a bigger space in my life. I regretted not allowing Dad to throw you and Mom out when our grandma instructed him to do so. Were you aware of the humiliation I went through when you got married? Remember that time we were not in touch at all, living in our different worlds. Mom kept the information away from me as well. I was in my office that day when my receptionist brought the newspaper of that day to me. As usual, I was amazed to see that your wedding was the cover picture. The shock was so much that I had to glance through it several times. Her voice cracked as she continued. My friends, who knew we were twins, made fun of me. They couldn't believe that you could get such a handsome man, while I, with my complete figure and beauty, wasn't even in a relationship, let alone engaged. I had to shut down my social media for months to avoid the humiliation. Sasa, your wedding made me remember how everyone wanted to be with you when we were in high school. They loved to play with you. They sought your attention by all means. When I thought of it all, I realized that if I hadn't shared my space with you in Mom's womb, my life wouldn't have been like this. You made me feel as if my life only existed in your shadow. Sasa was shocked by the height of the revelation and asked, Was that the reason you wanted to kill me? Zara's face hardened, but there was a flicker of pain in her eyes. Sasa, you always had everything I wanted. You have Ivam's love and protection. You get whatever you wanted cheaply and overshadow everyone around you. Just imagine how cheaply you won Dad over to yourself again. He's so dedicated to the point that he turned your ward to his room, abandoned his beautiful bedroom. I want my space. I want to shine, but you have practically taken everything away from me. Sas's mind raced. Zara, I never wanted to take anything from you. I always looked up to you. I admired your strength, your beauty, and your confidence. I wanted to be close to you, to share our lives and support each other. But you pushed me away, and I was glad when you came back into my life. Zara sighed and said, My mind had been occupied with the thought of fighting you back for taking my space before the DNA test proved that Dad wasn't your biological father. I thought my fight with you had ended until the truth was unveiled, and you got our grandma arrested for giving us a fake DNA test result that showed you weren't Dad's child, while the original showed you were. My anger against you kicked in again, but I had no channel to express it. Then, a few months later, Auntie Kamsi came to our house to spend some time with me and Dad. I started talking with her, and she made me understand that you are the reason for my setbacks. She said from history, if a dwarf shared the same womb with a normal person, there is every tendency that the normal person would live in the shadow of the dwarf. Initially, I didn't want to believe it. I thought she was talking nonsense until she compared your life with mine. Can you imagine the number of awards you got when we were in high school while I got none? My results were always a little bit below average. Even when Dad got me a private teacher, I only upgraded to average. You graduated as the best in your department in university and got scholarships to study abroad while I graduated with a second class. I secured a job in Dad's company, while you got a job at the biggest international hospital in the country. You were doing great in your career while I was laid off when a shareholder took over Dad's company. You are married while I'm still single with no serious relationship, not to mention having children, but you have a child of 9 years already. I was mad when I heard that you are the owner of the multinational company where Jack works. Sasa cut in, Zara, how did you know that? That has been one of my top secrets. Zara gave a weak smile. I know more than you think I do. You have been my case study for a while now, and your successes are amazing. As I was saying, Auntie Kamsi made me realize that your presence in my life would cause me more havoc than blessings, and it was so obvious based on our past records. Sasa interrupted again. Zara, it's all lies. Please don't believe her. I decided to be successful at all costs when I realized how badly Dad hated me for what I was born with and how badly he treated Mom as well for giving birth to me. I decided to make our mom proud. Zara, the path to success wasn't easy. It entailed hard work, dedication, and sacrifices, which I gave in for. Zara's eyes flashed with a mixture of anger and sadness. Hard work and dedication. Do you think I didn't work hard? Do you think I didn't make sacrifices? The difference is, you always had this innate talent, this drive that I could never match. No matter how hard I tried, I always felt like I was living in your shadow. Sasa's expression softened. Zara, it's not a competition. It never was. I wanted us to succeed together. I never saw you as a competition. I saw you as my sister, my other half. All those achievements, all those successes, they meant nothing without you by my side. Sasa's face twisted with emotion and her voice was barely a whisper. Zara, you don't understand how difficult things were with me. I was fighting my own battles too. I was fighting to be seen, to be valued because of my condition. I wanted to prove that I was more than my stature, more than what people saw at first glance. Zara sighed and, in anger, said, Sasa, do you know if you die now, you are already a success and your memory cannot be easily erased. But my life is nowhere compared to yours. So far, I have achieved nothing. I was only living in your shadow, just like what I was told. Was it a crime that I shared the same womb with you, Sasa? Both of them heard the sound of the door, and Zara quickly cleaned her face and pretended as if nothing happened.
At the airport.
As Jack and JJ waited for their flight, Jack's phone buzzed. It was one of his staff calling. "Hello, sir," the voice said. "Innocent, how are you?" Jack responded. "Sir, we have a document you must sign today," Innocent said. Jack's mind raced. Which document is that?" "The Cheddar's contract has been approved, and we need your signature for the final approval for execution," Innocent explained. "Oh, that's good news. So they finally approved that contract after all these long days," Jack said, his expression still indifferent. "Yes, sir. Mrs. Dennis brought in the document some minutes ago." Jack sighed. "I can't be available right now. I have a flight to catch. If it can wait, that's good, but if not, you'll need to scan the document and send it to me." "Okay, sir, I will get back to you. I need to discuss it with Mrs. Dennis first." "Okay, Innocent." Jack ended the call. A few minutes later, JJ tugged on Jack's sleeve. "Dad, I need to use the restroom." Jack, determined not to let his son out of his sight, accompanied him and stood guard outside the restroom door. Suddenly, 3 men burst into the restroom, catching Jack off guard. "How dare you make changes to the documents, making the agreement invalid?" one of the men snarled as they started to tie Jack up. One of the men noticed the tracking device under Jack's clothes. With a swift motion, they removed it, pulling off his clothes in anger and replacing them with the nondescript blue jacket. The other man grabbed JJ, covering his mouth to stifle his screams. The 2 men quickly fled the scene with JJ, leaving Jack tied up and helpless. Jack struggled against his bonds, watching in horror as his son was taken away from him once again. Jack's mind was in turmoil. He knew this was a fresh and big problem. He had to think fast. He remembered his phone was in his pocket, but with his hands tied, he couldn't reach it. His eyes scanned the room desperately for any way to escape. Jack managed to inch closer to a sharp edge on the sink, slowly sawing through the ropes. Just as he freed one hand, a cleaner walked in, gasping at the sight. "Help me, please. My son has been kidnapped," Jack pleaded, desperation evident in his voice. The cleaner's face twisted into a cruel smile. "Not so fast, Jack," he sneered, moving closer. With a swift motion, he kicked Jack hard in the ribs, knocking the wind out of him. Jack groaned in pain, struggling to comprehend the betrayal. "Why?" he gasped. The cleaner leaned in, his voice a menacing whisper. "JJ must be far gone before you gain your freedom. You're not going anywhere." Jack weakly looked up, his vision blurring from the pain and shock. Before he could react, the cleaner hit him again, sending him into unconsciousness. After a while, Jack slowly regained consciousness, his head throbbing with pain. The restroom was eerily quiet, the only sound being the distant murmur of the airport. He blinked, trying to focus, and saw the cleaner was gone. Summoning every ounce of strength, Jack struggled to his feet. His mind raced with fear for JJ. He stumbled out of the restroom, clutching his side, and suddenly a security man showed up. "I need help. My son, they've taken him," Jack rasped, collapsing into his hand. The security officer immediately dragged him into one abandoned restroom and locked him there. "This would be the last time you played games with us," the officer said. At the police station, one of the officers assigned to monitor Jack and JJ suddenly noticed a disconnection from their tracking devices. He rushed to Inspector Pella's office with a sense of urgency. "Sir, we've lost contact with Jack," he reported, breathless. Inspector Pella's eyes widened in alarm. He immediately picked up the phone and called the airport to inquire about the status of Jack's flight. "Is Jack on board?" he asked. The airport official checked and responded, "The flight is about to take off, but Jack isn't on it." Pella's heart sank. He instructed one of the airport security officers, "Check every area of the airport. I'll be there shortly." He then gathered his team and rushed to the airport. Upon arrival, Pella and his team began a thorough search, combing through every corner of the terminal. They reviewed surveillance footage, tracing Jack and JJ's movements. The footage showed them waiting for their flight and then entering a restroom, but there was no record of them leaving it. One of the airport cleaners approached them hesitantly. "Excuse me, sir, there was a white top in one of the restrooms," he said. "It seems it matched Jack's description." The cleaner was trying to get cues to the authorities' plan, so as to tighten up their sides. Pella followed him to the restroom, his mind racing with possibilities. "But where's JJ?" he muttered to himself. The absence of any trace of JJ intensified his anxiety. Back at the police station, Pella convened an emergency meeting with his team. "We need to find out what happened to Jack and JJ. Check all footage again, interview everyone who was near the restroom, and search for any other clues." Meanwhile, he called Dr. Hakim at the hospital. "Dr. Hakim, we have a serious situation. Jack and JJ have disappeared from the airport. We need to keep this information confidential. Be sensitive to all conversations and alert to any unusual activity." Dr. Hakim was shocked. "Understood, Inspector. I'll keep an eye out and make sure no one else knows."
At the hospital.
Bobby and Patricia entered Sassa's ward and were astonished to see her sitting up in bed. Patricia's face lit up with joy as she rushed to her side. "Sassa, you're awake. How are you feeling?" she exclaimed. Before Sassa could answer, Zara interjected, "Cudostomy? Sassa is fine." Bobby smiled warmly. "That's why we want you around always, Zara. Your presence clearly helps." Sassa managed a weak smile. "I really appreciate all your efforts. Thank you so much." Patricia, still beaming, said, "Zara, please go to Dr. Glory's office and inform her of the good news." As soon as Zara stepped out, Bobby moved closer to Sassa, his expression softening. "Sassa, my lovely daughter, you have been through so much, and I have watched you come out of it stronger every time. Please, never give up on yourself, no matter the situation. I am here with you now, and I am on your side." Sassa's eyes filled with tears as she replied, "Thank you, Dad. You've done more than I could have expected this time. I'm grateful." Patricia, standing beside them, smiled gently. "I'm glad you both are good now." Bobby nodded, his voice sincere. "I have made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I have decided to make amends and ensure that they are never repeated." Sassa sighed deeply. "Life has taught me so much, and each chapter of my life is full of unexpected surprises. I have fought so many battles, seen friends turn into enemies, seen enemies turn into friends, and faced challenges I never thought I could overcome." Patricia placed a comforting hand on Sassa's shoulder. "You have proven time and again that you are stronger than you ever thought possible. You've faced adversity and come out victorious." Sassa looked at both of her parents, her eyes filled with determination. "I've learned that strength comes from within, and with the support of my loved ones, I can face anything." Bobby's eyes glistened with pride. "You are an inspiration to us all, Sassa. Your resilience is remarkable." Just then, Dr. Glory entered the room, her face lighting up with surprise and delight when she saw Sassa awake. "This is wonderful news. Sassa, you're a fighter." Sassa nodded. Thanks so much for your unquantified support. I'm grateful. Dr. Glory said there are a lot I still need to hear from you, but for now you need rest. We need you to recover very fast. Sasa smiled. I think I will resume duty tomorrow. I'm very fine now. Glory nodded. I understand your culture, but I would love it if you can take some time out of duty for now. We need you to be very fine before getting back to work. Bobby nodded. Yes, Sasa. You have been through a lot this time. You must be physically, mentally, emotionally fit before resuming duty. Okay, I will try, only until I resume my duty. I'm not yet okay. Dr. Glory smiled and excused herself. Zara and Sasa gave each other a long stare with different thoughts in their minds. Patricia distracted them, saying, I think both of you have a lot to catch up with. We understood you have missed each other. Both nodded while Sasa gave a weak smile. At Sasa's house, Zara was at home resting when she heard a knock on the door. Panic was obvious on her face as she asked, Who's at the door, please? A male voice answered, Zara, open the door. It's Detective Michael Scott. Oh, Scott. She quickly opened the door and asked him in. How are you, Zara? I hope you are safe. Zara sighed. There is a height of insecurity everywhere, thanks to you guys that are always ready to go the extra mile for our safety. Scott nodded with a bright smile. You know you're brave, right? Your coming to the warehouse the other time is still amazing to me. In fact, you got my respect for that. Oh, that. I was just trying to save JJ by all means. At all costs, Zara responded. How's your sis doing? Yeah, she's very good. She should resume work soon. She went into the kitchen and noticed a message alert on her phone. She quickly read and replied to the message with a smile on her face, then came back with wine and snacks with 2 glasses. Zara served the wine and sat beside Scott. Both were chatting as they sipped the wine. Zara asked, How deep have you dug into my sister's case? Scott shook his head and said, We have gone far with it, but it seems as if the case is interwoven. I don't know why everyone is fighting my sister. They didn't even consider her height, Zara said with frustration. Scott cut in with a weak smile. Are you not threatened and intimidated by your twin sister's success? Zara's face grew serious. Not at all. Her success is our family's success, and I'm proud of her. My sister is so mighty, and I think that is the reason for all these attacks. Detective Scott yawned. Zara, you are exceptionally beautiful inside and out. Do you know that her success is enough to cause jealousy between you two? Zara smiled, expecting Scott to continue the conversation. As she glanced at him, she noticed he was already sleeping. Zara touched him with caution. Scott, Scott. When she noticed he wasn't responding, she smiled and said softly, I'm more than who you are seeing with your physical eyes. You and I have a long journey ahead. She stood up and moved around the sitting room, her expression shifting from worrying to a calculated calm. She picked up her phone again, sending a quick message before locking the door and drawing the curtains. Zara looked down at Scott, her mind racing with thoughts. I have been waiting for this day. I know you would come for me. You have no idea what's coming. Scott, you have no idea at all.
In the dark room,
Jack woke up in a dark room, the cold and silence pressing in on him. His heart pounded as he tried to remember where he could be and how he got there. He stayed quiet, combing through his mind. The thought of everything suddenly came back to him, and he shouted, JJ, JJ, when his son didn't respond. Then he asked, Where is my son? Where is JJ? Why was he kept away from me? His voice echoed in the darkness, but no one responded. Fear gripped him. Was I kidnapped too? Where am I? He remembered reporting the case of JJ's kidnapping to the officer at the airport. Completely confused, he decided to still pretend as if he was still sleeping. His mind filled with thoughts of Sasa. How long can I endure this frustration, fear, humiliation, threat, and much more that are in the box of my marriage to Sasa? I think I'm getting tired of all these ordeals. I don't even know where JJ is at this moment, he sighed deeply. Change is the only constant. He laid back on his bed, pretending to be asleep, his mind racing with plans. I must play smart to know where this place is and who are the people that kept me here. As he lay there, he strained to listen for any sound, any clue about his surroundings. He heard faint footsteps approaching. Jack remained motionless, his breathing shallow. The door creaked open, and a sliver of light pierced the darkness. A female voice whispered, "Is he still out?" "Yeah, seems like it, boss. Poor guy," another voice replied, softer but tinged with mock sympathy. Jack's heart raced. He had to gather information without revealing he was awake. The footsteps receded, and the door closed again, plunging the room back into darkness.
At Kamsi's ward.
Kamsi was deep asleep when her phone rang. She didn't want to pick it up at first, but when she glanced at the name on the screen, she reluctantly answered the call. "Hello? This is Kamsi," she said. The voice at the other end was cold and menacing. "Do you want to live? Or do you want to die? You must make a choice right now." Kamsi's eyes fluttered open in fear. "Sir, I have not done anything wrong. I have kept all the secrets until now," she stammered. "Yes, you have done well so far, and that was what made us to send you a phone to afford you the opportunity to make your choice." "I'm grateful, sir, for the second chance," Kamsi said calmly. "I have an assignment for you, which you must carry out in person," the caller said. "To that effect, you must sneak out of the hospital and disappear with no trace." Kamsi's heart pounded. The security in the hospital is very tight now. How could I possibly do that without being caught? "If you follow my detailed instructions, you will achieve it without stress," the voice assured her. Kamsi sighed, her mind racing. "What's the assignment? Why do you need me to do it?" "The assignment I want to give you. You are the only one who can do it successfully. So choose life or death," the caller said before ending the call abruptly. Kamsi was visibly shaking. "What should I do now?" she muttered to herself. "If they discover on time that I'm missing, that would be dangerous for me. And if I refuse this offer, they might as well erase me. Oh, what should I do now? Should I opt out by bringing Daniel into the matter?" Her mind raced with possible scenarios. She weighed her options, knowing that any wrong move could cost her life. As she was busy with the thoughts, her door creaked open. A nurse walked in to check on her. Kamsi quickly hid her phone under the pillow, trying to appear calm. "How are you feeling, Kamsi?" the nurse asked, adjusting the foredrip. "Better, thank you," Kamsi replied, forcing a smile, "just a bit restless." The nurse nodded sympathetically. "It's normal. You've been through a lot. Try to get some rest." Kamsi nodded, watching the nurse leave. She knew she had to act fast.
At Sasa's ward.
Sasa, now visibly stronger, finished her meal and looked up at Bobby and Patricia. "Where is Jack?" she asked. Sensing their hesitation, "Tell me everything about him, please. Don't hide anything from me. I'm fine now. I can handle any issue." Patricia sighed, exchanging a glance with Bobby. "JJ has been rescued from his captors," she began. "Jack was on the run with him, but we haven't been able to speak with him. We know he'll get in touch as soon as he's settled down and sure of their safety." Sasa laughed, a wave of relief washing over her. "Wow, at last, JJ is alive. Dad, it's good news. So, why are you keeping it away from me?" Bobby gave a weak smile. "I and your mom were only trying to safeguard you from anything that might affect your health." Sasa nodded. "As soon as I came out of the coma, I had a very long talk with Zara. Since that conversation didn't break me down, I believe I'm ready to face whatever lies ahead of me." Bobby leaned forward, his eyes filled with determination. "I want to assure you again that we are with you 100% this time, please. Don't hide anything from us." Sasa smiled, her eyes misting with gratitude. "I appreciate that, Dad." Patricia interjected, "There's a lot that happened, which we won't be able to tell you now. But please show your gratitude to Dr. Hakim. He's a trusted friend." "Okay, Mom," Sasa agreed. "He has been a wonderful person to me for ages now. He's my brother from another mother." Just then, the door opened, and Dr. Hakim walked in with a clipboard in hand. His eyes lit up when he saw Sasa sitting up and talking. "Ah, Sasa, you're looking much better," he said, approaching her bed. Sasa beamed at him. "Dr. Hakim, thank you so much for everything. I owe you my life." Hakim smiled warmly. "You don't owe me anything, Sasa. Seeing you recover is thanks enough." Patricia added, "We were just telling her how much you've done for us, Doctor." Hakim nodded, his expression turning serious. "We've all been through a lot, but the important thing is that we're here for each other. We need to stay strong and united."
At Kamsi ward.
Kamsi made her way to the bathroom in the hospital and found the bag that was kept for her. She quickly changed into different clothes and wore a wig that made her look like an old woman. As she stepped into the hallway, she saw Detective Daniel heading towards her ward. She quickened her pace, walking briskly towards the exit. Detective Daniel noticed the elderly woman but didn't give her much thought. He continued to Kamsi's ward. The nurse on duty saw him approaching and intercepted him at the reception desk. "Detective Daniel," the nurse said, "Kamsi went to the bathroom to freshen up. She's now better and can do things by herself." Daniel smiled, pleased with the news of her recovery. "That's good to hear," he said. "We can finally get some answers from her." He took a seat in the waiting area, his mind running through the questions he would ask Kamsi. Meanwhile, a car had been waiting for Kamsi outside. Kamsi sat beside the driver, her heart pounding. She glanced at the driver, a stern-faced man who hadn't spoken a word since she got in. "Where are we going?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "You'll find out soon enough," the driver replied curtly. "Just sit back and stay quiet." Kamsi sighed, her thoughts racing. She was terrified but knew she had no choice. The voice on the phone had been clear. Failure to comply meant certain death. She had to trust that this plan would keep her safe, at least for now. Minutes ticked by, and the nurse began to grow concerned. She had expected Kamsi to return by now. Deciding to check on her, she headed towards the bathroom. As she entered, she was shocked to find it empty. Confused, she ran to check for her in the ward, thinking she had returned without noticing her. Panic set in as she realized Kamsi had vanished. She quickly ran back to Detective Daniel. "Detective, she's gone." "Kamsi's not in the bathroom," the nurse exclaimed, her voice filled with alarm. Daniel jumped to his feet. "What do you mean she's gone?" he demanded. "She couldn't have just disappeared." The nurse explained the situation, and Daniel's mind raced. He remembered the elderly woman he had seen in the hallway. Could it be? He muttered to himself. Was that Kamsi in disguise? Without wasting a moment, he alerted hospital security and ordered them to search the premises. He also called his team to check the CCTV footage. During the search, they found the police officer assigned to Kamsi's ward lying unconscious inside the utility room. As they reviewed the recordings, they saw the old woman coming out of the bathroom passage, making her way to the exit and getting into a car that had been waiting for her. She planned this escape, Daniel said, frustration evident in his voice. She had help. Daniel instructed his team to track the car. We need to find out where they took her and who is behind this. He turned to the nurse. Did Kamsi have any visitors recently? Anyone suspicious? The nurse shook her head. No, just family and friends. No one out of the ordinary. Daniel sighed.
At Sasha's house.
Sasha and Patricia arrived at home unannounced. Sasha needed to freshen up before her resumption, and Patricia came along to monitor her closely. Patricia unlocked the door from outside but found it locked from the inside, making it impossible to open. Patricia pressed the doorbell and waited for a while, hoping Zara would come to open the door. The wait felt endless. Sasha eventually returned to the car to wait, growing increasingly concerned. This is unlike her, Patricia said, her voice tinged with worrying. We've never locked the door from the inside during the day before. We only do that at night. I hope Zara is fine. Sasha picked up her phone and started calling Zara, her face filled with concern. Her mind was preoccupied with the deep thoughts of the conversation she had with Zara earlier at the hospital. Patricia also started calling her. Zara's phone was ringing, but there was no response. Both of them looked increasingly worried. Should we involve the police? Sasha asked, her voice trembling slightly. I'm getting scared. I hope nothing has gone wrong with Zara. Patricia went back to the door and tried to unlock it again with the key, but still, there was no response. She pounded on the door, shouting, Zara, are you in there? Please open the door. Next on The Mysterious Twins Part 12. A masked lady entered the dark room and stared at Jack with cold, calculating eyes. I have piled up dirty clothes in the utility room, she said, her voice dripping with menace. Make sure they're well washed, like I said earlier. I prefer hand washing to the washing machine. Make me happy today if you don't want to miss your meal. One of my guys will be with you, in case you need anything, she added. Hello, sir. The Cheddar's project has been approved, the voice says with urgency. They have increased the projects to 70 countries where we would carry out the projects. They promise to add 10 more countries when we are done with the first half. A pause, then a steely reply. That's the more reason why we need to finalize and take over on time. Remember, I planted you there for this purpose.
Don't miss the next thrilling episode of The Mysterious Twins.